Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Now, we haven't been able to see a new Marvel product, a show or movie for the last 3 months, which kind of feels like 50 years in the MCU, but we've got a new Marvel movie to watch, some new Marvel content. Although maybe for some it seems to be a kind of a lackluster sludge at the moment right now, especially watching Phase 4. This movie isn't as lackluster as potentially people would have thought to be. I also feel the criticism that this movie received, I feel at times I can definitely understand, but it didn't really come across to me as being like this, abysmal mess that people thought it would be. But yeah, kind of talking about the movie's premise, I'm sure if you've probably seen the trailers for this movie, you kind of know that this is kind of what's expected. And I think sometimes with the whole Marvel formula that they try and put off in these movies does come across very generic. So you kind of know what happens in this movie, the whole sequencing of how it goes on. And this is kind of like the same thing with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. So really to kind of talk to you about the beginning or what this whole movie is about. So basically now, ever since the Avengers defeated Thanos, now Scott Lang is now considered an Avenger and saved the universe from, the blip and everything. And now he's living his normal life. And he basically lives his normal life with Hope as well as Cassie. And upon living their normal life on Earth, Cassie works on something called a device that can basically transport them into the quantum realm. It's basically exactly how you see in the trailers advertised, and they do play that off. And it really does feel like a slow start into how they kind of build up the movie. It doesn't really draw you in, and especially even when they get into the quantum realm, I don't feel there's really anything that comes across as really interesting. So they land in the quantum realm, they kind of explore it. It kind of feels the whole vibe that they kind of started off with. It kind of felt like something that you see in Star Wars when on Tatooine you kind of see a bunch of people living there that kind of look like Tusken Raiders and some other types of people. So it kind of felt like something that they kind of took off from another source material before. But really until they kind of get to the point where we get introduced to Kang, I think that's when the whole premise really changed. But yeah, I want to kind of speak about some of the things that I do genuinely like about this movie. So some of the things I do like is I like how they kind of build the atmosphere of the quantum realm. So there's kind of a lot of visual effects, sort of bringing some of the visuals such as the star, the space, also some of the sort of the meteors and those kind of sort of visuals that you see, like something that you see from a galaxy out of space. I think they really draw the atmosphere of the quantum realm pretty nicely. And other things I do like about the film is definitely one of the last battle scenes in the near the end of the film. Definitely that battle scene definitely stood out, and that's kind of where you see the most of Kang. And I could definitely say that Jonathan Majors definitely produces a very good job as Kang. He definitely does look powerful, and something that I think that they are trying to build in this whole multiversal saga, I believe. But I don't know like how they're gonna sort of play out for the next few films. But they definitely do sort of emphasize on Kang mostly at the end. But it did take quite a while to get to that point. So really the good stuff kind of happened near sort of middle to the end. So that's kind of some of the things that I did like. Now, kind of moving forward to the things that I wasn't so much of a fan of. So the beginning of the film was very lackluster. It kind of sort of produced Scott Lang, being the successful Avenger. To be honest, I didn't really feel there was so much of a chemistry between Scott Lang and Cassie. It felt very disjointed, and I didn't really sort of feel that they were really like a sort of a parent or any sort of way that they sort of had sort of any sort of ongoing happy sort of relationship with each other. It felt pretty weak. Um, but speaking, other than speaking about that, I felt kind of the whole premise of leading up to Kang was very slow, and it didn't really have anything that kind of built up any sort of anticipation to that. I think maybe when you get to the point where Janet, who was someone who was stuck in the quantum realm for 30 so years, she kind of explained her backstory of how she first knew Kang, and it kind of built up this whole emphasis that he is one of the most dangerous persons that she come up against. He can really control all the timelines and destroy all the timelines, and really that emphasis kind of worked really well. But it took its time until the movie got itself very seriously. I will also say another thing as well. I don't think many people talk about it as much, but I do feel the Marvel formula has kind of worn on me too much. It kind of feels like I have chronic Marvel syndrome, where you really don't really feel fulfilled about the whole direction that they're going. So even some of the jokes and the small talks they play out, where they don't really take things too seriously, it doesn't really make me feel like I want to feel entertained by it, because there isn't really so much that they really talk about that actually builds up the serious premise of the film. So that kind of stuff really has worn on me too much recently, especially from Phase 4. I feel like I wish they kind of took a more serious approach to these films, focused more attention on really how they build up Kang as this really, really powerful villain, who has all the controls of the timelines, and he can pretty much control other factions of the multiverse. I don't really think they've focused on that as much. But yeah, overall, I think the film is pretty decent. I don't think this is like a Marvel movie that I will be going out telling to people that you actually need to watch this. This is seriously good. I think this is kind of like another archive to another big fest of Marvel content that I think is kind of now, you kind of watch it once and you kind of forget about it, because there is a lot of Marvel content nowadays that the fact that there is so much, I don't think there's really so much that there is to care about. I do also think there is a bit of a question mark. What is Marvel trying to do with this new multiversal saga? I don't really sort of understand the direction. Everything doesn't really feel coherent, especially watching the movies from Phase 4 or the TV shows, what they're trying to build up. So I think that's kind of the question mark I have really watching the MCU now. But I think this is kind of one of the movies I think that they are trying to build up. I think Kang has been the focus on the multiverse saga. I think especially with Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, and maybe Secret Wars, I think he is going to be integral in that. So we have only a few years to find out whether this is what they're building up for. But I'm judging the movie how it is. And I think overall I'll probably give this movie a 6 out of 10. There are some things I do like. I do think the ending battle scene definitely stood out. Jonathan Majors' performance as Kang stood out. He definitely does look very powerful. But I think the things that I wasn't so massively impressed on, I kind of feel the Marvel formula has worn on me, and the way they build up the sequences of the film is pretty predictable. You kind of expect how things to happen. And I'm not so sure whether people will agree with me on this, but I don't really feel Paul Rudd really delivers a good performance. His dialogue is very weak, especially with Cassie, who's played by Catherine Newington. I don't really feel there's really a cohesion between the two, but that's kind of my personal opinion. But yeah, I mean, this is a decent, good Marvel film. I wouldn't be telling people to rush to watch it. I think this is kind of like another sort of anticlimactic film that builds up to the next one. I think that's kind of how we expect it nowadays. And yeah, that's about it. See you later.